All right, I believe we should be live here. Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My name is Austin Brubaker. I am not Casey Porter. I do host a show sometimes on Monday nights. My name is Austin Brubaker. You can follow me on X at AustinBRU99. This is Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. It's been a while since I've done Monday night shows. Had some family stuff go on that needed my attention, so I had to take some time to be able to go and deal with that, spend time with family. However, I could not be more excited to be back Monday night live with some of the best Dodgers fans on the planet, some of the best and smartest baseball fans on the planet. Excited to talk Dodgers baseball tonight with you guys. We'll be talking about a wide variety of different topics depending on what you guys want to talk about, whether that be the state of the Dodgers as they are right now, both at the major league club or at the minor league club, or, as I know that you guys typically like to do, potential trade targets, because you want to find different areas to improve for the Dodgers, find different ways to make this Dodgers team as airtight as they possibly can be as they go and try to make a World Series push. So excited for you guys to be here. Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Go ahead and leave a comment in the chat. Leave a like if you are just joining us. I see that we're already getting people checked in from different areas all over the planet, all over the world. I'm currently residing here in the great state of Michigan, so let me know where you guys are tuning in to Dodgers Dogs from. Really happy to be here discussing this. Also got a as you haven't noticed right here, I've got a sweet jersey going on tonight. I've got the brand new Great Lakes Loons Margaritaville jersey that actually was a gift to me this past week. So really excited to be going and doing this a little bit in style as well. So we're going to be diving in to the Dodgers, the state of where the Dodgers are at, and what possibly could the Dodgers do to improve their club. So just as a breakdown, before we get into specific trade targets, which I'm sure we will get into, and we'll be giving my opinions, which you very well might disagree with my opinions. That's where there can be some back and forth on what the topics are for that. The Dodgers just had the series with the New York Yankees in New York after a disappointing series with the Pittsburgh Pirates. There have been several disappointing series that the Dodgers have had. There's been a little bit of an up and down. Big picture, the Dodgers are still, 15 games above 500. They are 41-26, well in positioned in first place in the National League West, which is good. I think there are still good areas, and there's still a lot of positives that you can take away from this team going up and down the roster in all different aspects of the game. Whether you go and talk about the starting lineup, which still does boast a lot of really good players. Teoscar Hernandez, how good of a series did he have in New York? He was absolutely phenomenal out there against the Yankees. It's been well documented what he did in that series, hitting for power, just going out there and overtaking the Yankees, especially in those first two games, and even what he did during the third game. Teoscar Hernandez, absolute stud. We can talk a little bit about whether you think the Dodgers should or are going to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez. There's been a big push for that. Question for you guys. Do you guys want the Dodgers to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez? And to what extent do you want that contract to be? Because I think it's easy to say, yes, Dodgers, go ahead and sign Teoscar Hernandez. What are some of your limits towards signing Teoscar Hernandez? And is it best to make that decision right now after a great week? Make sure that you capitalize on him right now, especially because there's been some reporting that Teoscar Hernandez seems to want to indicate that, or it seems to have indicated that he wants to be a Los Angeles Dodger. Definitely an interesting topic to discuss, something that we should dive into as well. He had a great week. He's really helping be a important piece for this Dodgers offense, in addition to the guys that are at the top of the lineup that have had a long and storied track record of success, like Shohei Ohtani, like Mookie Betts, like Freddie Freeman, like Will Smith. All of those guys are really good. You also have some good success at the pitching side as well, as we saw this past week with the two young guys. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who has been around for a little bit, young in terms of his major league experience, went out there and absolutely shoved and showed that even on the biggest stage, he can step up to that moment. Same with Gavin Stone as well. He showed up in the big moments and I think really solidified himself as a part of this rotation going forward. And as a guy, if this continues, you can't sit him on the bench during a postseason series if you're the Dodgers. If he continues to pitch this well like the Dodgers did to Ryan Pepiot back in 2023, continue to work on the process. We'll continue to evaluate as it goes forward. Gavin Stone's pitching really well. You have three guys that you feel really comfortable with at the starting pitching side. And then you also have some good guys that are coming out of the bullpen as well. You got Evan Phillips, who has been reliable in the past. You got the combo of Daniel Hudson and Blake Trinan, who Blake Trinan's been good. You have Michael Grove, who over the past, you look at his starts since the first 4 or 5 starts when things did not go well, he's putting up some really good numbers. You have some good positive signs out of the bullpen, but that does not mean that this Dodgers team is not complete. We've been talking a lot about the struggles that this bottom of the lineup has had. We've talked a lot about some of the inconsistencies at times that you've seen with some bullpen arms, a lot of which has to do with injuries that the bullpen has occurred, which there will be guys coming back. There might be some concern for this Dodgers club as far as potential pieces that they could need to make this team as good as they possibly can be, because this year, 2024, the Dodgers have to do everything possible to take advantage of this year, and they have to do it in a good, smart, responsible way that allows them to have the best possible position, puts them in the best possible position to win a World Series. That is something that we all want, and we're going to talk about different ways to go ahead and achieve that goal. So, I've been talking for quite a bit. That's kind of where a little bit of the state of the Dodgers are. They're still in good position. They will be playing the Texas Rangers, the defending World Series champions, won the World Series in 2023. We'll see how the Dodgers do. Texas has been struggling a little bit this season. They're a little bit below 500, which coming off of a little bit, you could say, of a World Series slump. Still a really good ball club. Still got a lot of really good players. Corey Seager included in that. But I want to get to your guys' comments because this is your guys' show. Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Happy to participate, happy to be part of this show and really interact with you guys. It's been too long since I've done this, so we're going to go ahead and get into the comment section right here. Starting off with Roy Estrada. Thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon to you as well. Please consider the following. The Dodgers need an outfield bat who can play center field and move Pages to right field. Get a shortstop with a bat and move Mookie to second base. 2 more starters, not internal. So that brings up a lot of interesting discussions, a lot of interesting topics, because the main area of concern to this point in the Dodgers season, besides all of the injuries that have taken place, has to be the bottom of the lineup for the Los Angeles Dodgers. There have been a lot of struggles. There have been a lot of inconsistencies at the bottom of this lineup from role players, from bench players, from guys that have started quite a bit. There have also been a little bit of there's been some mistakes that have shown up in some big moments, one of which happened during the game last night. You saw Andy Pages go after that catch that would have ended the inning, that would have prevented the run on the fly ball. I believe it was from Drudge. Made a good run at it, jumped up to make the catch, but ultimately couldn't make the play. Hit off his glove. You expect, as a major league outfielder, Andy Pages, or a major league quality player, to make that catch. I think that Andy Pages would say that. I think everybody in the Dodgers would say that. And I think most people would agree that he should have made that catch, regardless of how difficult a play that it was. He still has graded out as a good quality outfielder for the Dodgers, still at a 1 outs above average, that being the StatCast measure for fielding, one of the ways to measure his ability in the fielding wise. So he has been a solid outfielder, but I think Roy Estrada is correct in that the future projection of Andy Pages still is as a right fielder. This is something that was evident throughout his journey at the minor league level. His arm is a bazooka, an absolute rocket out of there. And I think he profiles best, despite everything, despite the weight that he lost, to try to increase some mobility, which I think is good, and positional flexibility is great for him. I think he profiles best as a right fielder going forward. Still would be helpful if he gets a lot of time in center field, or at least gets some of that positional versatility. So I don't necessarily disagree with you on that. And I also totally get and totally agree with the sentiment of getting Mookie Betts to second base. It has been a struggle at times for Mookie Betts at shortstop. We've seen him, he's athletic, he can make a lot of plays, but because he hasn't been a shortstop his entire career, he can't necessarily make every single play. And when we're talking about the conversation of Mookie Betts and shortstop, this is something that I don't know. This is something that a lot of people don't know. This is something really that Doc and Mookie Betts really know, is what exactly it's doing to Mookie Betts, the playing every single day at shortstop. It has been a little bit of a struggle defensively, but ultimately what I want and what needs to become a priority for the Dodgers is what is best for Mookie Betts going forward, and what's going to get the best possible version of Mookie Betts, particularly in the postseason. That is what needs to happen for Mookie Betts. He needs to be at his top level of performance in that, whether that is at shortstop, whether that is, and I think the assumption is that it would be best for Mookie Betts to move over to second base, and that would be best for him, that'd be best for the Dodgers overall. That is certainly something to keep in mind. I think best case scenario, because the Dodgers were not planning on Mookie Betts playing shortstop going into the season, I think they would love to have some type of shortstop like a Bo Bichette that has been mentioned quite a bit by Dodgers fans, by other baseball fans, potentially as a connection between the Dodgers and them. I don't know how realistic that is, considering Toronto is a around 500 baseball club, and there's been some potential unwillingness to trade a Bo Bichette. And then you look at some of the other shortstop options, a lot of the good, solid, defensive, rock-solid shortstops that are also really good in the bat are young, controllable players that are on other teams that are either competing or likely would be unwilling to trade their shortstop. So as far as the shortstop position, yes, I totally agree with the sentiment that the Dodgers could and should be looking to target for some type of shortstop if that becomes available. Willy Adames very likely is not going to be available because the Milwaukee Brewers are competitive and they are well in first place in the National League Central. Other options, I mean, you could find another shortstop that perhaps you could platoon with a Miguel Rojas. I know there's a lot of talk about why don't not just move Miguel Rojas back to playing shortstop quite a bit. Doesn't sound like the Dodgers want to play Miguel Rojas every single day. He's kind of getting about half the games where he is starting. I think that seems to be the role that the Dodgers are comfortable with him in. So perhaps you look to target a guy that can kind of platoon and get some starts at shortstop with a Miggy Rojas. I don't know if that star level player is necessarily out there for the Dodgers to go all in for, unless you're going for a Bo Bichette at shortstop. Perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps there's guys that you are thinking of in the comment section. Happy to dive into that. But as far as the need for the Dodgers, I think that would be ideal for the Dodgers to go after and get a center fielder with a great bat, to go after and get a shortstop with a great bat. You also have to target and find guys that will be available and guys that you think will have good, solid future success going forward and for this season for the Dodgers. So curious to see what are some of the names that you guys have in mind as potential targets, whether that be for outfield, whether that be for the infield, whether that be for shortstop, or whether that be for a position like third base, not necessarily knowing exactly when Max Muncy is going to be back. Interesting conversations. I'd be happy to give a little bit of my philosophy on guys that I would target, as well as different guys that we can talk about. And I'm sure we'll talk about guys that have been heavily rumored to the Dodgers, like Luis Robert Jr. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on him and all sorts of different guys. But we're going to continue on with the comment section as I have a lot of catching up to do in order to get up to you guys. Showtime LA, thank you very much for joining us as well. Alfonso Lucio, thank you for joining us from Inglewood, California. Hanging out from the great state of Michigan here. Alex, thank you very much for joining us. There are almost no impact bats on the market. Any potential trades we won't see coming a la Trey Turner. I know I've been seeing a lot of the same things, and especially when we're this early into the cycle and we're trying to find and identify teams that are looking to sell. There's a lot of teams that are below 500 right now. I think last time I checked, there was maybe 10 teams that in Major League Baseball that were above 500. But that also means that there are a lot of teams that are still grouped up and still somewhat competitive right now. Not necessarily complete sellers. They might want to go for it, like the Toronto, being 32 and 33 as they're in right now, still in competition for a wild card spot, and so you don't necessarily know if they want to go and push that button for the rebuild. Perhaps it'd be in the best interest for the long-term future of the Blue Jays, but sometimes teams don't always think about the long-term best interest for their organization. They want to win now, and they still feel like they have a good shot with the time, with the money, with the people that they have invested in. So that makes it difficult to narrow down teams. And even if you do narrow down teams and look at guys that have typically been trade deadline pieces, guys that are close to expiring contracts, guys that have some big league experience, guys that teams don't envision seeing a future with them, some of the pieces become very limited, both in the outfield and the infield market, as the game has turned into a little bit more focused on a lot of the younger guys, as well as teams wanting to lock up a lot of their young superstars to long-term deals, or just looking to have good, solid, young, controllable players be part of their team. I think that is something that for the Dodgers makes, and for a lot of teams trying to find different pieces to help with their organization, makes it very difficult to make trades. There will be guys that will emerge, and we'll kind of discuss those based on what you guys think would be good ideas. Showtime LA, thank you very much for joining us. Austin, do you think Lorenzo makes it to Tulsa this year, and will Rushing make it to Oklahoma City this year? Great questions. So Tyrone Lorenzo, if you're unfamiliar, catching prospect, really highly touted within this Dodgers organization. He is currently at the high A level, part of the Great Lakes Loons, which is the hat that I'm currently wearing, the team that I follow along with very closely. Started off the season incredibly slow offensively, and was very much a struggle. His late April, particularly in the series against Fort Wayne when he started to get hot, until now has been incredibly impressive, to the point where he has become an above average bat at the high A level. He's making really good strides. Dalton Rushing, really good strides as well. He has a 152, I think I looked earlier, WRC plus, making really good decisions, swinging the bat, walking still quite a bit, hitting for some power. Dalton Rushing is a really good major league player in the making. Tyrone Lorenzo has been playing really well as well. I think he's got his WRC plus up to 115-ish. Don't quote me exactly on that. Two really solid players. I don't know exactly what the Dodgers' plan for both of those guys are as far as advancing them, because when you're having this conversation about advancing guys up, it is not just them that you have to think of. It is the next level, and you have to think what is going to be best for them and how can you fit all the pieces and maintain proper depth within the Dodgers system. So the Dodgers do have a couple of guys up at the AAA level. Hunter Fiducia, who is on the 40-man roster. I expect him to stay at the AAA level in Oklahoma City, as well as Chris Oakey. Perhaps if Dalton Rushing continues with his projection, if he continues with 150 WRC plus, and assuming that he stays within the organization, you could see him make that move to AAA sooner rather than later. I think the Dodgers very likely, because catchers start. Tyrone Lorenzo has been getting 5 starts a week. He's been getting a day off or so every week and doesn't play catcher all the time. I think mostly the defensive portion of the game might be what holds Dalton Rushing and Tyrone Lorenzo back at their individual level for right now. Lots of things to learn as a young catcher within this organization. Two very talented guys that will move up within this organization. Keep an eye out for them, though. Sean, thank you very much for joining us. Dodgers Dogs with Austin Casey is arguably best Dodgers show I've ever seen. Glad I could catch a live show today. I'm very happy that you could catch a live show as well, and we have some of the absolute best fans out there. Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Really appreciate when you tune in and when you interact with the show. It truly makes this show worth watching and worth doing as us, as people that help run the show. You are equally as much part of it. Showtime LA, that's fire jersey. This was jersey that the Great Lakes Loons wore, Margaritaville jersey, back the other night, if you didn't see it earlier. Really nice jersey. I believe they are sold out on the Loons website, but they've got some other really good stuff there, so definitely check it out, loons.milbstore.com. Kenneth Hall, thank you very much for joining us. Need a bat or two and at least one reliever at the deadline. I think that seems to be the overall assumption for a lot of Dodgers fans, and I think that is probably correct with the way that this offense is currently constructed. You could really use some length and a little bit more consistency and reliability towards the back end of the lineup. And I don't necessarily, when I say consistency and reliability, don't necessarily mean just contact-oriented guys. I think there can be an assumption when we talk about reliability, consistency, that we're just talking about guys that are just going to put the ball in play. I think you could find guys that have good walk and strikeout rates, still can put the ball in play, but also can provide a little bit of pop. That obviously is what you are looking for in a player, a guy that has really good numbers and good expected numbers. So this is something that I typically look for when I'm looking at different players to target, is I'm not necessarily looking at just exclusively performance from this season or performance from past seasons. I think that is a very valuable tool, and that should definitely be part of the equation. I'm also looking at what is this player going to do the rest of the season, looking for some of those underlying metrics, particularly with stuff like expected weighted on base average. So that is a very good tool that StatCast has. One of the top things that they highlight, weighted on base average, if you aren't familiar, tries to put a number and weights different outcomes based on how good they are. For example, doubles are better than singles. Home runs are better than triples or doubles or singles. It provides a little bit more appropriate weight, and that is a key component in something like WRC Plus that we cite quite a bit. Expected weighted on base average, just as it sounds, takes the expected weighted on base average based off of the batted balls in play that you have. I think that is a very useful tool because I think oftentimes hitters or players could potentially get lucky on certain batted ball events. One of the reasons why we talk a lot about batting average on balls in play, a good indicator either of potential regression, either both positive or negative regression. That is something that I'm taking heavily into account, as well as a player's past performance, because I want future success for that individual player. I want that player to perform well in the postseason. A lot of different factors to keep in mind. So when looking for potential trade targets, whether you're looking at outfielders, whether you're looking at infielders, and right now we're looking exclusively at position player or talking exclusively about position players, that is something that I would definitely keep in mind. And also look at the type of player that they have, and what the type of player that they are. So, for example, one of the guys, and I know he's with the Angels, so the Dodgers and Angels very likely couldn't or might not make a trade together. One of the guys that I've highlighted and think would be a good guy, a lot of other people have highlighted him as well, outfielder Taylor Ward. He is not a center fielder. He's more of a left fielder exclusively for the Angels. However, if you look at his numbers, his success, which I know struggled a little bit in the month of June, so that is definitely something to keep in mind. His expected numbers very much there, and there can be even more improvement from his 755 OPS that he has currently in the season. I'm looking at the screen right over here. 89th percentile and expected weighted on base average, which is one of the highest in the potential available players that could be out there on the trade market, with the Angels not performing particularly well. His expected slugging percentage is very high, so if you like the power that could potentially come from the postseason, very good. Also, there's some consistency with his walks and strikeout percentages, with his walk percentage being the 77th percentile at 10.7%. Strikeout percentage a little bit high at 22.8. Not too terribly high, though, with the consistency that he's able to provide. That is the type of player that I would be looking for. Somebody with some good underlying numbers, with good expected numbers that you could project going forward. Those are the types of players that I would go for. Now, if you want to trade for Taylor Ward, and I think there's a good argument to be had, I think you could go ahead and make that argument. Or if you're just looking for the type or profile of player that I'd be looking for, that's kind of the area that I'd be looking for. Philosophically wise, love to hear what type of players or where you'd like to go with the players that you would sign. As far as a reliever at the deadline, that's a really interesting topic because I don't know if the Dodgers are going to or should trade for a reliever right now, only because they have a lot of guys that are out and are currently working their way back, and I'd love to see the progress and status of those guys, as well as the health of some of the other guys on the roster before going after a reliever yet. Now, I'm saying yet because it's very likely, as with most contending teams at the trade deadline, very likely I will want to go after a reliever, and I've voiced opinions in the past about wanting to go after, for example, a Tanner Scott. I think he still would be a great piece to add to this team, even with the very high walk percentage that he's given up so far this season. Where the Dodgers are at, they have a couple of guys that are coming back. Bobby Miller has been working on a rehab start, which, if you talk about this Dodgers pitching rotation, you have Tyler Glasnow, you have Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and you have Gavin Stone. Those three guys, barring some type of injury or some type of load management, are going to stay part of the Dodgers rotation. You also have Walker Buehler, you also have James Paxton, and despite some of the struggles that they have had, particularly the last outing with James Paxton, I don't envision right now the Dodgers, they can't send them down, and I don't envision the Dodgers doing anything necessarily with them. So you're going to have to, assuming that Bobby Miller is going to be back on the Dodgers, which I'm assuming that he will be. I think that talent is too good not to keep that away from the Dodgers. going to have to find some sort of role for him, which could bring up the potential and often utilized or often talked about 6-man rotation. I think there are different ways that you could look at it instead of a 6-man rotation, perhaps, and especially if they have an off day here and there, perhaps you could do a piggyback start, maybe with a Bobby Miller and a Bobby Miller James Paxton, or a Bobby Miller Walker Buehler piggyback type start where Walker Buehler or Bobby Miller starts the game and then the other one finishes it. Same thing with James Paxton and a Bobby Miller, James Paxton and a Walker Buehler. I think you could potentially get creative like that to eat some of the innings up. Or you could go with the 6-man rotation. The issue with that being you have one less guy out of your bullpen, and that can overtax your bullpen, especially with some of the guys that are in the Dodgers bullpen. Right now, they don't have a lot of guys that have options. And so I think the piggyback type role would probably be best. The only 2 guys out of this Dodgers bullpen right now that have options are Alex Vesia, pitching phenomenal, not sending him down, or Michael Grove, pitching really solid. Yes, he is pitching really solid, especially over his last month or 2, ever since late March, early April. He's pitched really, really well. I don't think you're going to be sending, or the Dodgers are going to be sending him down anytime soon. Not really a whole lot of guys that you can send back and forth for that. So I think that would probably be one of the options, as well as Kyle Hurt. You have Brusdar Graterol potentially working his way back. You have a Clayton Kershaw trying to work his way back. You still have guys that are injured, and Ryan Brazier and a Joe Kelly that are still part of the 40-man roster right now. Other guys that are part of this bullpen. Guys working their ways back. I think the Dodgers need to evaluate where those guys are at first before going all in and going and making a trade for a relief piece and then not knowing where everything stands. Definitely highly am considering of trading for a relief piece. I think that always is a good decision at the trade deadline. Dodgers need to evaluate the health of those guys as well as the health of the guys currently on the roster as well before going ahead and making that trade. Roy Estrada, and one of the questions that I asked earlier in the show, and you guys can go ahead and chime in if you guys want. 100% need to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez, looking at 3 years, and then a question mark as far as how much to sign Teoscar Hernandez. I think that is the general sentiment of Dodgers fans, and I think that is probably correct. I think Teoscar Hernandez has elevated his game when he has been surrounded by great players, when he has been surrounded by the Will Smiths, the Shohei Ohtanis, Mookie Betts, the Freddie Freeman, and when he's been put in situations where the lights are shining bright, where the moment is big, that is where Teoscar Hernandez has shown the level of talent that he has. You also, especially since we are concerned about the potential outfield market that is available via trade, I think that might be an indicator of what the free agency is going to look like during the 2024-2025 offseason. You have the big piece in a Juan Soto who would be great. Will the Dodgers go out and sign a Juan Soto when they have all of these other pieces and you want to try to figure out exactly what to do at shortstop? I would guess probably Juan Soto is out of the equation, out of the picture. So maybe going after a guy that is in-house that loves it here, apparently, from some of the reporting. And no doubt, I think you just see the energy that Teoscar Hernandez brings and just the big clutch moments that he had in the Yankees series, I think forces you into the discussion, forces you, despite some of my concerns with some of the strikeout rate and some of the inconsistencies at times that can bring. I think he's too good against left-handed pitching and fills a needed void within this Dodgers team that you have to consider and probably need to go out and re-sign a Teoscar Hernandez, preferably sooner rather than later, because you want a little bit of that security in place if you are the Dodgers. As far as the value money-wise, that becomes a really good question. As far and length as well, I think 3 years would probably be appropriate and probably what you would target for if you are the Dodgers. Teoscar Hernandez currently is 31, almost 32 years old, will be towards the end of the season. So you'll be getting him for, if you sign him for 3 years, 32, 33, and 34 seasons, right before some of the production really starts to wear off quite a bit. And during the prime run, when you have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, and Will Smith at the very best. So I think that would probably be appropriate and should be the target for the Dodgers. 4 years, I think, could be reasonable. I would be hesitant right now to go 5 years or more. However, for a Teoscar Hernandez, nothing to do with Teoscar Hernandez as a player. He has been a great player and has filled the void for the Dodgers. I am just hesitant to go after and give long-term deals to players that are entering their later portions of the season, because I think you can see some of the production really start to wear down, and you could be paying for performance that he did in the past that he will not in the future. I think he's still going to be a good player for another 3-ish seasons, and so I think that would be reasonable. As far as the price tag for that, that's going to be the real question. Obviously, with the Dodgers, with the history, you could always defer a lot of that money, which probably would be the decision for a Teoscar Hernandez signing. Currently, he is signed for $23.5 million. My guess for Teoscar, it's going to be a $20+ million per year player, perhaps pushing it to that $25+ million per player type of deal, especially if you want to go into the 3-year territory. Just thinking of the market and thinking of the potential value that he could get if he got a 1-year, $23.5 million deal for the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers could work something out, and I think that needs to be something that they need to figure out. Elias Shiva Jones, thank you very much for joining us. Bring up Outman. James Outman obviously was part of this Dodgers club early in the season, really struggled offensively, got sent back down to Oklahoma City, and has put up some good numbers with Oklahoma City as he has been there. Let me go ahead and pull up some of the numbers that James Outman has put up in Oklahoma City so you can get a little bit of an idea of how good he has been for them so far. Give me just a second to go ahead and pull up some of these numbers. So James Outman, during his 85 plate appearances in Oklahoma City, so you're starting to get at least a decent sample size, 163 WRC plus. He's hitting 317, 471 on base percentage, 587 slugging percentage. That is equivalent to a 1.058 OPS. He's walking 20% of the time. His strikeouts are only 22% of the time. He's hitting really, really well right now down at Oklahoma City. I totally get the desire to want to call up a James Outman. The question is, which role does he fill in when he gets called up? One of the things that I've been frustrated about with the Dodgers club right now has been their use with a guy like a Miguel Vargas. I'm not saying Miguel Vargas is a superstar player. What I am saying is they are and have been very hesitant to give Miguel Vargas really any sort of playing time at all. Over his past 6 games, he's had maybe 1 start. He gets maybe 1, maybe 2 starts a week. And I don't think that is good for the development of a guy like Miguel Vargas. So with James Outman, the question is, who does he replace? Do you call him up and send down an Andy Pages, which would be one of the ways that you could go ahead and do it? Flip-flop them. Andy Pages still has a good 100 and something WRC plus on the season. Had a good week this past week. I don't necessarily think that is the move. There is the concern and there is the possibility of Chris Taylor, who has really, really struggled this season for the Dodgers. I don't know if the Dodgers are willing, as they've given him a couple more starts. Perhaps this is the last straw for a Chris Taylor. The Dodgers are trying to figure out if there's anything left out of him. He's gotten a little bit more starts recently. Still is really struggling on the season. Perhaps that is the move. So the question would be, who do the Dodgers replace in order to bring up a guy like a James Outman? Outman's hitting really well and performing at a level that you'd want to see him at the major league level. But that also can be said about other guys in this system. If you look at minor league baseball and the overall statistical category, if you look at all the overall statistics, Dodgers have 3 guys out of the top 4, I believe, players in all of minor league baseballs in home runs. Chris Newell, who is at the high A Great Lakes level, leads all of minor league baseball in home runs with 18. He's an outfield prospect, just going absolutely nuclear for the Great Lakes Loons. Then you have 2 guys that are hitting really well in Oklahoma City, AAA level, that aren't on the 40-man roster, one of which, third base prospect, Andre Lipsius. Definitely, it's been a lot of rumblings, definitely been a lot of rumors, especially with Gavin Lux having struggled this season, and especially with Max Muncy out at third base. Perhaps we could see an Andre Lipsius, who would have to be added to the 40-man roster, get called up. His numbers are absolutely unbelievable this season. 145 WRC plus, 17 home runs. He's walking a decent amount at about 10.5%, not striking out too much, hitting 322. He's just slugging the baseball, performing incredibly well for Oklahoma City. And then you also have Ryan Ward, who goes completely under the radar, yet has 17 home runs, leads basically all of minor league baseball if you include his 9 complex league at-bats in slugging percentage and ISO, and even if you remove those, he's right at the top of the leaderboard. He has a 143 WRC plus on the season. You have a lot of guys that are performing at Oklahoma City, is my point, with James Outman. The question is, who do they replace at this point? Because they would have to, if you are the Dodgers, cut ties with guys. Or, in the case of Gavin Lux, who does have options, you would have to send him down and likely replace him with some type of infield piece, which could potentially be the move with an Andre Lipsius. Definitely something to keep in mind if you want to bring up James Outman, who is performing really well. Got to find a spot and got to find a role for him in particular. So definitely something to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers. So I'm gonna go back to the chat. Looks like we got a lot of comments here, and we're gonna be trying to roll through a lot of these right now, as I know I'm way behind in a lot of the comments. Doing a little bit of rapid fire right here. Justin Lamas, let's be frank, I expect us to beat New York with no Soto, Cole, Rodon, Stroman, while we had Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, and through Yamamoto, Glasnow, and Stone. Be heavily concerned if we couldn't beat them. I think that is a fair point to make, and I think that just shows the high expectations with the guys that the Dodgers do have, and with the star power that is still yet to come for the New York Yankees. I think Juan Soto is a phenomenal, generational type player, and definitely the Dodgers in that series got lucky that he missed that series. I kind of wish he would have played in that series, not because I didn't want the Dodgers to win that series, because I would have liked to see the Dodgers go up to that challenge. We'll have to wait to see if that challenge presents itself, if the Dodgers do make it to the World Series, which we all want the Dodgers to. The Yankees are a very good club, and they are a very good possibility that they could make it to the World Series this year with the talent that they have. Elishiva Jones, as we try to do a little bit of rapid fire, says trade Vargas. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. If he's going to sit on the bench and not do a whole lot, maybe get a couple of starts, even with his great performance at the minor league level, walking more than he struck out, hitting a 150 WRC plus. Dodgers clearly don't have a role for him. I think he could be one of those guys that you look for as a potential piece in a trade deal with another organizations. I don't say that because I don't believe in the talent of Miguel Vargas. I do say that because I believe in the talent of Miguel Vargas, and because I want him to get the most playing time and get the most opportunity to be able to prove himself. Unless the Dodgers find another role in which they can utilize him more, I would agree with you, Elishiva Jones. One-Eyed Dragon, thank you very much for joining us. Is signing to you a now thing, or can it wait till the end of the season? I think it could wait till the end of the season. However, you are risking it going up towards the end, making it to where you're getting close to free agency, and I think the price tag could come up even more. Right now, Teoscar Hernandez seems happy, seems comfortable in Los Angeles. Now might it be a good time to take advantage of that if you are the Dodgers and get a deal that both sides are going to be happy with. Teoscar Hernandez going to get the necessary years of major league experience to receive the pension, to be surrounded by great talent for a long time, to be able to play in those big moment games. And then for the Dodgers to get a much needed piece in the outfield where there is question marks going forward, as well as a guy who is a lefty masher who has fit really well with his Dodgers team. You could go and sign him after the season, or you could go ahead and wait for later. So either way, I think the Dodgers can go ahead and try to make that a priority for them. Shiva Jones, Teoscar seems a bit streaky, so I would wait a bit before re-signing Teo. I think that's totally fine too, and I think that is a perfectly rational choice to make. I think it can be irrational, and as much as I have been pushing it on this show, perhaps you look and sound irrational doing it when Teoscar Hernandez was at his best. This past week, we saw Teoscar Hernandez put the Dodgers on their back. There's a lot of help from the other players, but Teoscar Hernandez offensively was an absolute force for them. Maybe that's not the best time to re-sign players. Maybe the best time is perhaps when their price might be a little bit lower, say not at the week where the player was at the possible best. I only say that they possibly should, one, because I saw great things from Teoscar Hernandez. He seems like a great fit. And also because I think there has been a really good relationship between Teo and the Dodgers. So really good discussions that I know the Dodgers are having right now. So definitely something to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers. Shiva Jones, looks like Austin is underground right now. I may or may not be underground. That is for me to know exclusively. Justin Lamas, the NL West is not very good right now, and the rest of the NL, we have essentially a free ride to the NLCS. I wouldn't necessarily say that because I think that some Dodgers fans would have said the exact same thing the past couple of seasons. Look what happened. Philadelphia will be stuck facing the Braves, while we get Milwaukee with no pitching or a mediocre 84-win squad. Don't underestimate your opponent as you go into the postseason if you are the Dodgers. That has been a downfall for the Dodgers in the past, and if that mindset continues, it will bite them again. That is the only thing that I'll say with that. As far as the standings for the Major League Baseball and National League, totally understand the picture, totally understand that there is limited teams that are above 500, and there seems to be a lot of mediocre type teams in Major League Baseball right now. Perhaps that is the case, but even a mediocre club can get hot at the right time, or the greatest club can get cold at the right time and lead to the Arizona Diamondbacks going to the World Series in 2023. So don't underestimate your opponent would be my advice. Let's see. Going to go ahead and keep going with the comments. One-Eyed Dragon says Rojas at short, Betts at second base. Definitely something to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers. However, I think Rojas is going to get playing time basically every other game or so, or his role is going to be somewhat limited because of his age and just with the way that the Dodgers want to utilize him. I don't necessarily know if the Dodgers want to go down that path. If you want to move Mookie Betts to second base, either get a solid everyday starting shortstop, which those are very hard to find, or you go ahead and find some other guy to help platoon with a Miggy Rojas that can play every other day at shortstop. Perhaps can be positional versatility. at other positions. That would be potentially a guy that I would look at if you're at the shortstop position. So keep in mind that if you are the Dodgers, totally understand the sentiment, though, with Rojas at short, Mookie Betts at second. I will say, though, if you are the Dodgers, right now, they have some guys really emerging at the shortstop position. I mentioned this with Casey quite a bit. The current leader and weighted runs above average, which is a cumulative statistic similar to WRC plus, that as you get more at bats and as those at bats get better, you gain more over time. Current leader in all of minor league baseball is a shortstop prospect for the Los Angeles Dodgers. His name, Alex Freeland, currently in Double-A Tulsa, working his way up. Trey Sweeney also performing really well, Oklahoma City Triple-A. Not saying those guys will be shortstops for the Dodgers in 2024, but they are performing really well. Also, Noah Miller is performing really well. The best defensive shortstop I've seen in quite a while down there at High A Great Lakes. Got to wait to see some of those guys. Dodgers got to figure out a situation for 2024 and what's going to be best for the postseason. Maybe Mickey Rojas can be a shortstop for a postseason type series. We'll have to wait. Going forward. Evil Stevens Jones is not really a fan of Andy Pages at center field. I think that is fair given his most recent performance in New York. Overall, he is graded as an above average outfielder. However, I think he is best served in right field. I think that is where he's best going to be. Still like the positional versatility that he has. Also, not necessarily happy with Andy Pages' slide. That slide cannot happen in that moment in a Major League Baseball game. Andy Pages knows that. The Dodgers know that. That will be fixed, and that is something that Andy Pages is going to have to change, and those small mistakes can't kill you in the postseason, so I totally understand the frustration with Andy Pages. And I think James Outman probably is the better defensive center fielder out there. So if you want to have a James Outman, Andy in center field, Andy Pages in right field, maybe a Teo in left field, especially if you can get the bat of Outman and Pages working really well, I think that's probably best case scenario for the Dodgers and something that they're going to be keeping an eye on and perhaps investigating before the July 31st or whenever exactly the trade deadline is. Let's see. Sean says it would be cool if the Dodgers could get a qualifying offer draft pick for Teoscar at the end of the year. That would be if the Dodgers don't re-sign a Teoscar Hernandez. I don't know exactly if he's gotten that qualifying offer in the past, in which case the Dodgers might not be eligible to get that. But that would be the re-sign a Teoscar Hernandez. Perhaps that is the move that the Dodgers do. In which case, if the Dodgers do get a qualifying pick, I trust the Dodgers and their development system and their draft process to where they would get a really good player. It would just take time. And right now, I think the Dodgers, with their time frame, probably would prefer to have Teoscar Hernandez on their team. Justin Lamas is not happy with the way that James Outman has been hitting to this point of the season. Totally fair. He was third in Rookie of the Year. He has been performing really well in AAA. Does not mean that he will perform well if and when he gets called up to the Major League level again. He is still an option and still has a potential future with this Dodgers team. And in the best case scenario for the Dodgers, he would be a part of this Dodgers team going forward. That is something definitely to keep in mind. And you should be rooting for a guy like a James Outman to get back there to provide a little bit more stability in center field. Hopefully you can make some of those clutch catches if you're James Outman. I'd root for these guys because I root for the best interest of the Dodgers going forward. Alex says, I'm fine with Pages' defense. It's his hitting against righties that needs to improve. Also walking more, chasing too much on 3-2 counts. Definitely something that would definitely keep in mind if you are Andy Pages, or something that is of concern. His chasing, some of the swinging miss that he has had, and his inability or his unwillingness, or you could say his, I don't know exactly, he hasn't been drawing a whole lot of walks. to this point in the season. That is uncharacteristic to him as far as him at the minor league level. Sometimes those numbers at the minor league level, those walks and strikeout numbers, although they should, as you would imagine, be somewhat predictable of future success, don't always pan out that way. I think as Andy Pages gets more comfortable at the big league level and starts to figure it out, and as he gets more comfortable to hitting again, remember he missed almost all of 2023 last season, didn't get a whole lot of at-bats at the minor league level. He was hitting too good to where the Dodgers decided to call him up. I think with Andy Pages, I think he's going to get better over time, and I think you're going to see him walk over time. However, if this continues, it is definitely something that is concerning to me, because I think the chasing, the swing and miss, the not walking leads to a very inconsistent player, and inconsistent players sometimes don't show up in the postseason, or at least they're unpredictable as far as when they could show up. I still believe in Andy Pages. I've seen him perform in some of the big moments, and I think he has all the future in the world. Definitely something to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers, though. Roy Estrada, Teoscar is batting .266, 16 home runs, and is a clutch hitter. Strikeouts don't really have an impact on the performance. Sign him now while spirits are high. End of season if things don't go as planned. Definitely something to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers, if you are Teoscar Hernandez right now. One Eye Dragon says play Vargas. I think that is definitely something that I would agree with. And there's some disagreement as far as a Teoscar Hernandez, him striking out too much. Very respectable back and forth, and something definitely to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers, if you are Teoscar Hernandez. You have to think of both sides of the coin and ultimately come to what you believe is going to be the best decision. And ultimately, you also have to think of not just the negatives, but what could be the potential other side or different players that you could get instead of a Teoscar Hernandez. I think that is ultimately another question that needs to be asked as well. Michael Carrillo, thank you very much for joining us. We should trade for JJ Bleday. JJ Bleday, I believe he's out in Oakland right now, putting up some really good numbers for them on the season. Let me go ahead and pull up some of his numbers. I haven't spent a whole lot of time digging into Bleday. Younger guy, really high draft pick, I believe, for the Marlins, and definitely somebody to keep in mind going forward. I think he's still very early in his career, still has a lot of service time that he has, which, especially if you are Oakland, definitely don't necessarily want to give up. To this season, he's hitting .237, .321, .453. That equates to a .774 OPS. He has 9 bombs on the season, hits left-handed, can be a really good player, has good walks and strikeout numbers, which can lead to a little bit of consistencies. Expected weighted on base average, .323. I think he's a guy that you can definitely keep in mind if you are the Dodgers. However, with the amount of service time that he has remaining on his deal, and with Oakland to this point liking a lot of those guys, I don't necessarily know if that is going to be the decision for the Dodgers to make that trade yet, or if it's going to be something where they might have to wait. You got to talk about not only what the Dodgers could want, but also the willingness to be able to trade for a guy as well. So JJ Bleday, love the idea. Definitely somebody to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers. I'm not necessarily if I'm all the way there quite yet. As we know, we have a lot of people in the chat right now. Thank you very much for joining. It looks like we have a super chat in here. So thank you very much, Right Field Pavilion, with the $50 super chat. That is very, very much appreciated. I can't express from Casey and I, from Coach and Coach, how much that truly means to us, for the fans, and for the support that you have shown this channel. So I'm going to go ahead and get to that one, then we'll get back into the comment section right here. The helmets the Dodgers are using seem to be flying off their heads while they swing. I see it more in Lux and Ohtani. Do you believe the movement of the helmet can cause a brief blind spot? Just wondering your thoughts, and thank you. Well, first off, thank you so much for the super chat. Again, can't express how much I really do appreciate it. That is very, very generous of you and very much appreciated. I don't really have a whole lot of insight, whole lot of thoughts. I can say without a doubt my professional baseball career was very, very much cut short, meaning I wasn't even close. Wasn't really a whole lot that I could do with that. Perhaps that is something to keep in mind as far as a potential blind spot. I know, especially on like fly balls and stuff, when fly balls fly over my head, I don't always see them with the bill of my cap. I would imagine if they're the Dodgers, that would be something that they would know ahead of time. And if you're a major league organization, you would assume that there wouldn't be a blind spot, or players would bring that up. So I don't necessarily know if that is the case. Definitely something to consider, and especially if it's something that has been causing issues, definitely something to look into. However, I don't necessarily know if that's technically the case for the if you are the Dodgers, if you are some of these other clubs. So thank you very much for the super chat. I'm sure that is something that we can ask Casey. I'm sure he has a lot more experience coaching coaching baseball at the high school level, so see if there's anything with that he would have better insight for. Definitely bring that up for him, and I really do appreciate the super chat. Right Field Pavilion. And we'll go ahead and get back in the comment section right here. Michael Carrillo, Paul DeJong has a very respectable slash line of 856 against right-handed hitters, against righties. That could be something, or 865, I think it was a correction that he made. And he is a shortstop type player. He's currently playing for the Chicago White Sox, which that is a type of team that you already know they're going to be sellers at the deadline. You already know that White Sox not performing particularly well. With a Paul DeJong, some of the things that I might be concerned about, and again, I'm only saying what I'm concerned about right now because I want to make sure that all of these different factors, the 865 OPS against righties is brought up the good as well as the bad in order to know the complete type of player. He does swing and miss. He doesn't walk a whole lot. He does chase. Expected weighted on base is in the 28th percentile. A little bit concerning, as well as the outs above average, a little bit below average. Those are some of the downside. Could that be a result of him being a part of the Chicago White Sox, where there is a lot of players that have that type of profile? A lot of swing and miss, not a whole lot of walks, a lot of inconsistencies in some of their games. Very possibly could be a result of that. Paul DeJong, 30-year-old, can play shortstop. If you want to perhaps platoon him with a Miggy Rojas and have him take over, for example, a Gavin Lux, if you're not trusting a Gavin Lux and you want a Mookie Betts at second base, get Gavin Lux some time at AAA Oklahoma City to get his swing back in order to work on a bunch of different areas in the game. Perhaps that is an option, especially if Bo Bichette is not available and there's not really a whole lot of shortstops on the option. Maybe that is a move that the Dodgers have to make. Paul DeJong. And I love the ability to look for different splits, to look for hitting against righties, looking for some of those different splits and how that could mold into a good type of player, especially if the Dodgers are able to utilize them in an effective way. Paul DeJong, definitely a name to consider. Not ready to pull the trigger on him quite yet. And Roy Estrada, I'm sure the Dodgers will wait on Teoscar. Probably correct. Teoscar seems clutch. That is definitely true as well. Kenny Young says, bring Lipsius up. That seems to be a really popular and definitely correct set, or definitely a well worthy sentiment, especially with the power that he is hitting with. He's hitting for a ton of power, 17 home runs at a level that he hasn't hit at the minor league level throughout his career. You could attribute that to him being in the Dodgers organization, some of the potential changes that he made to his swing. And with Max Muncy out, perhaps, and I think it is probably correct that he is worthy of being called up to the major league level, of getting that opportunity. Dodgers would have to add him to the 40-man roster, which I believe currently sits at 39. I believe that could be definitely a thing that the Dodgers do. The question is, whose role does he replace? Right now, I think the role or the spot on the roster would have to be either a Chris Taylor or a Gavin Lux, send him down to Oklahoma City, or unless there is some type of injury that takes place. I only say those two because they seem to be some of the ones that are struggling the most and would open up a potential role for an Andre Lipsius to get a lot of playing time at third base. You can move Kike Hernandez into a little bit more super utility type role that I think the Dodgers would like to consider. Gordon Ames, thank you very much for joining. The way Alex Freeland is doing, he's up for consideration. I would say not at the major league level, still needs a lot of time and development at the minor league level. However, he is performing and has been the most productive hitter in all of minor league baseball, and I point to rated runs above average. As the proof for that, I point to his 181 WRC plus and the fact that he walks more than he strikes out. I love the future that Alex Freeland has. And I've got the chance to see it up close and personal, all in 2023 and during the first month plus in Great Lakes during this season. That kid is special. He can play really good defensively at shortstop. Also got some time at third base, at second base. He can move different positionally. Rock solid defensively. And his approach is really, really solid. Gap-to-gap type power. Also can hit a ball really far, as he did in Cedar Rapids Game 2 Midwest League Championship Series last year. Definitely something to keep in mind. Justin Lamas, as long as the White Sox become realistic in their ask, he's no Juan Soto. So that brings up the topic and the well-questioned guy, and the guy that seems to have the most rumors for the Dodgers right now, and Luis Robert Jr. Are you guys all in on Luis Robert Jr.? Do you guys want the Dodgers to get that superstar type player, the guy that can play center field defensively, the guy that can be an anchor to center field, an anchor to this Dodgers team for the future going forward, guy that has a lot of star power? Do you guys want the Dodgers to go after him? Or are you potentially concerned with the profile and the type of player that he is? Now, I'm going to say this straight off. I think Luis Robert is a phenomenal, fantastic player, and I'd be overjoyed if the Dodgers were to get him, and I think he'd be a really good player for this Dodgers team. My main concern with Luis Robert, and as we've talked about earlier in the show with the different type and profile of player I looked for, there are some concerns that I have with Luis Robert, and that particularly has to do similar to a guy like who's a teammate of his, Paul DeJong. The profile of Luis Robert has consistently remained, particularly during the seasons when he's been healthy and during the very small sample size, which I don't like to judge based on the small sample size. This season, there is a lot of swing and miss. There is not a lot of walks, which that is not the end of the world to a player. However, that can lead to inconsistencies, and there have also been past players in the game that have fallen off, that have swung a lot, that don't walk a whole lot. If the power is not there, they fall off as players. Now, I'm not saying that Luis Robert will become this type of player. He is a great player, and especially if you put him in a lineup that with a lot of pieces around him, I think he would perform really well. However, there have been players that have been superstar level players that don't walk a whole lot, that strike out quite a bit, that over time as they get older, those problems exaggerated, and they eventually became not great and inconsistent offensive players, especially if as they chased a lot. Failure I'm talking about, as I've seen in the state of Michigan, Javier Baez. I'm not saying Luis Robert is Javier Baez. What I'm saying is that I see a lot in the profile that reminds me at least a little bit of him. Luis Robert hits the ball more in the air, generates more power than Javier Baez did, even at the same age. Both don't walk a whole lot, both strike out a lot of times. That would be my main concern if I am the Dodgers. However, Luis Robert, his contract, very team friendly. He's got this year and next year, as well as 2 club options for only $20 million, which if he is anywhere close to the 5-WAR player he was last season is an absolute steal. Do you want to empty the farm system for Luis Robert when you still have a hole at shortstop? When you don't exactly know when Max Muncy is going to be coming back? When you don't necessarily know the health of pitching, which, as we've seen, can change right on the dime. I'm not ready yet. Perhaps my mind could change. I'm not ready yet to trade and go all in for Luis Robert. Although I am very open to your guys' thoughts, to disagreement in that opinion, if you guys are of disagreement with me. I totally understand, and I totally respect those disagreements. Perhaps Luis Robert is another superstar player, and you can add him to this club. Not to mention that, and this is something that I didn't mention, and I'm less concerned about, but definitely something to keep in mind. He has dealt with injuries in the past. I'm not as concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the profile and potential drop-off of player for him. That is something to keep in mind, and especially with the White Sox wanting a deal better than what the San Diego Padres gave up for Juan Soto, which if you look at a lot of those guys that the Nationals got, Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams, James Woods, who is one of, if not the best prospect in all of minor league baseball. I don't know if the Dodgers, and actually I'm going to say the Dodgers should not match that offer for the risk and for the inability and flexibility that keeping some of those guys would have for a Luis Robert. I'm just not there quite yet. Could be swayed. There's still time before July 31st, and especially if this Dodgers offense continues to struggle towards the bottom of the order, want every single possibility to be explored. He is one of the few superstar type players to be available at the trade deadline this upcoming season because he is on the White Sox. I don't know if he is the best guy to target because of potential inconsistencies and concerns with the profile. Just my opinion, though. If you disagree, I totally understand and would be happy to give into that in the comment section as I work on somewhat trying to catch up with you guys in the comment section. Orlando, thank you very much for joining us. I expect more from the top 4. Didn't perform like superstars. Aaron Judge showed up. Yeah, you got to tip your hat to Aaron Judge. He is a superstar level of player. Top 4, Mookie Betts did have a big moment in that series. He did have a couple of big hits. You'd love to see more out of the top of the order, and you expect to see more out of the top of the order. But even when they don't provide everything, you still have guys that can perform, and why Teoscar Hernandez is so incredibly valuable to this team. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Hey, everyone, happy Monday. Happy Monday to you as well. Michael Carrillo, we should prioritize getting contact guys for the bottom of the order. Way too much of the same archetype player at the bottom of the order. I totally understand and totally agree with that. I'm not necessarily looking for contact. I'm looking for consistency with some of the walk and strikeout numbers, which I guess you could say typically lean to more contact type players. But I'm looking for balance with that and with some power, preferably with guys that don't strike out quite as much. I don't want necessarily contact guys that don't really walk a whole lot at all. I still want guys that walk at least a little bit, but their strikeout numbers are a little less and still can provide for a little bit of power. Now I'm asking for quite a bit on that, but that you want a little bit more consistency at the bottom of the order. I think we can all agree on that. When I drag in the Yankees seem more top heavy than we do, perhaps in their lineup they do have a lot of really good quality players. They did have some guys step up that have struggled this season in big time moments, so some of their numbers might be a little bit concerning there, as well as their bullpen. Perhaps you like the Dodgers, especially if it becomes a little bit more healthy bullpen more than the Yankees. Their pitching staff, though, has been phenomenal this season in New York, and they've got guys that have stepped up and become really solid pieces, even after trading a lot of their depth to San Diego during the course of the offseason for Juan Soto. Got to tip your cap off to the Yankees as much as I dislike the Yankees. Roy Estrada, we did good with top four, not on their game, especially Ohtani, who did not really show up a whole lot that series. Kenny John has been disappointed with Shohei Ohtani. He's in a little bit of a prolonged slump. No matter what Mookie says, his shortstop pre-game prep is leaving him exhausted. Yeah, I think he has been... obviously, there's some concerns about his defense and about his ability to hit. You want Mookie Betts at his best when the game happens, and that is something that the Dodgers are going to have to work on, trying to get him at his best when the game actually happens. Michael Carrillo, I like Lorenzo more than Rushing and Cartaya because switch hitting catcher will be majorly valuable at the major league level. Absolutely, Tyrone Lorenzo, very, very impressive. I've been highly impressed being able to... I've gone to probably 15, 20 of the games in person so far, large majority of them with Tyrone Lorenzo behind the dish catching. Very impressed with his offense tools that he has. Still got some work to do defensively, particularly with stuff like wild pitches. There's been a lot of wild pitches at the high Great Lakes level. I think that's going to come over time. He does have a rocket for an arm, can be a little bit inconsistent at times as far as throwing runners out. However, the arm talent is undeniable for Tyrone Lorenzo. Still got a lot of work to do to become that consistent major league player. Rushing far more advanced at this stage right now in his career. However, Lorenzo still working, and you can see all the tools are absolutely there for him. And I think Diego Cartaya still has a lot of talent within him. Just looking at some of the numbers that Diego Cartaya has, yes, he did have a lot of a slow start, but I believe his WRC plus is in the 90s, like 94, something like that, for him, which is not exactly what you're looking for, especially with a player of the caliber that he is and the type of player, offense player that he can be, and especially for a top prospect. It was 99. He's about a league average hitter at the Texas League right now. So, and especially for a catching position, if you can get a league average hitting catcher, you got a pretty good piece. So don't give up on Diego Cartaya, even if the heights that people thought and placed on Diego Cartaya might not be reached. Major League Baseball and baseball in general is very difficult, and I still haven't given up completely on Diego Cartaya. Justin Lamas, they need to play Vargas because next year he's out of minor league options, meaning he'd have to be DFA'd if he can't stick on the active roster. I think he'll have one more minor league option for next season that they could potentially use. However, right now the Dodgers show an unwillingness to play Miguel Vargas, and that could be because that the Dodgers don't really have a plan for Miguel Vargas. In which case, if that's the case, I would prefer Miguel Vargas to actually get an opportunity to play and get a real opportunity somewhere else. So I think that is something that I agree on for Miguel Vargas, and definitely a little bit something concerning and weird that the Dodgers aren't playing him. But we'll have to wait and see. This is Roy Estrada. This is where the organization saves Mookie from himself and gets a shortstop. Mookie is a competitor and would never admit he should go back to second base. He is sacrificing for the team. Mookie Betts, highly, highly competitive. Definitely something to keep in mind. It's something that very well could be happening with with Mookie Betts. I don't think he would ever flat out say that he needs to go to second base or can't do shortstop, because I think in Mookie Betts' eye, he is going to do and be a good, solid shortstop and is going to fight for every single second to be the best shortstop that he can be. I think you're right, though. If it becomes to the point where it is hurting the club and the club can see that and the club wants to make this team better, they're going to have to find some sort of way. What that move is right now, there is no obvious answer like there seemed to be during the offseason with a Willy Adames, or when you were talking about the potentially needing a shortstop and the expectation was Gavin Lux was going to fill in that shoes, and he just didn't perform during spring training. Plans did change. Plans could change for the Dodgers, and that might be the best for Mookie Betts and the Dodgers. And right now, I think that's probably what would be the best. Already talked a little bit about Luis Robert and what my potential opinion is on there. There is a good amount of swing and miss, is alarming, and he can't stay healthy. Definitely something to keep in mind for the Dodgers. And if you're giving up your farm system for that, another also something to keep in mind is the White Sox don't seem to have as good of a system in place right now. The Dodgers employ the very best, with exception to the hitting coaches, according to Kenny Chung. Trainers can keep Robert healthy. I have full confidence in a lot of the people within this organization to do whatever they can to help keep players healthy and try to get the best out of them. Major League Baseball is hard, and it is not necessarily the trainer's fault if a player gets hurt. We've seen a lot of Dodgers players get hurt over time. I still think this organization has great people and some of the best coaches around to help their players achieve the best that they possibly can be. So with the Luis Robert, I won't necessarily be concerned as much about keeping him healthy. I'd be more concerned about the swing and miss and the potential downside, which the potential downside could be a player like a Javier Baez, and I don't give up Dalton Rushing plus Josue de Paula plus more for Javier Baez. That's just not something that I would do if I were the Dodgers. Again, not saying that he is Javier Baez or will be Javier Baez, but that is not something that I would do, especially if that prevents you from being able to do a lot of other moves. Roy Estrada, Robert would be great, but the White Sox want teams to overpay for him. They want more than what the Padres give up for Soto. That is something that is very, very much concerning. As we're going to get through as much of the comments remaining left before we go ahead and wrap it up. I know Clint Pasillas is going live in about 8 minutes or so. Definitely recommend you check out his channel, as our two channels very friendly. He has come on to this show. Casey has gone on to Clint's show. Does a phenomenal job over there. Plus my voice is starting to wear down. I haven't done this Monday show in quite a while, and talking for an hour and a half about Dodgers baseball, super fun. Can wear out your voice a little bit. But we'll have definitely more stuff coming as we continue to go further. Michael Carrillo, and this is something definitely to keep in mind with a potentially Taylor Ward type trade. Artie Moreno would rather trade with the Padres than the Dodgers. Definitely something to keep in mind, and something that could prevent the Dodgers from trading for a Taylor Ward, even though the profile exactly what I'm looking for. Dodgers and Angels might not match as well as trade partners as they would want. You remember the former Andy Pages potential trade to the Angels for a Luis Rengifo. That did not go as planned, and I think the Angels missed out on a really good prospect and player in Andy Pages. So we'll have to wait and see. A couple of other guys keep in mind by D. Jimenez 789, Taylor Ward, mentioned him, Lane Thomas of the Washington Nationals, and Jarren Duran. Definitely guys to keep in mind going forward. Another guy that Showtime LA mentions, how about Brian De La Cruz from Miami, which for the Miami Marlins, they are really falling out and not really a whole lot in contention this year. They shocked everybody, or they made a really good push and had a really good season last year. However, not performing quite as well this season. So far this season, Brian De La Cruz is hitting 248, 301, 421. He is about a low 700s OPS for the past couple of seasons. That is continuing this season. Hits for a decent amount of power. You're talking about 15 to 20-ish home run power, maybe a little bit more this season. Still some concerns with perhaps some of the walks and strikeout numbers with Brian De La Cruz. I think he can be potentially an option if some of the other options come off the board and are limited. Just looking at some of the service time for him, he is still pre-arbitration, meaning he is still under contract for the 2025, 2026, and 2027 seasons. That could bring the price tag up for Miami, and that could prevent a deal between the Dodgers and the Miami Marlins for Brian De La Cruz, because I don't think the Dodgers would overpay for a low 700s OPS outfielder for 3 additional years of service. As good as service time actually is, you're looking for some of the upside of the player, and I think the Dodgers would rather fill the shoes in-house, especially with some of the options that they have. So definitely something to keep in mind. Perhaps you could pair him with a Tanner Scott or a Jesus Luzardo, although with some of the starting pitching that they have healthy, I don't necessarily know if they need a Jesus Luzardo currently right now. Definitely something to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers. So continuing to look into the comments right now as we go ahead to finish up the show. Just reading through some of the comments right now. A little bit behind. We'll go ahead and skip somewhat towards the end. Let's see. Cole mentions trade these guys now while they appear to be playing well to bring them up to expose them as non-big league players, talking about some of the guys like a Andre Lipsius or Ryan Ward or perhaps a James Outman even. I think some of their value might not necessarily be as high as you might think right now to other organizations, because I think other organizations want to see them succeed at the big league level and want to see them get a little bit of run time as well. So I think they might be benefited from getting some big league experience, even if they have a little bit of big league experience, and get some good solid run time before the Dodgers, if the Dodgers don't have a role for them envisioned in the future, could potentially trade them. Elishiva Jones mentioned that he got to meet Noah Miller at spring training. He is a really cool guy. Definitely somebody to keep in mind. Orlando mentions Alex Freeland and Trey Sweeney better get on that Gavin Stone plan and start eating Chipotle ASAP. I think they're doing fine just as they are, and I think they're still hitting for some decent power. We'll have to wait and see for what they've got going right now. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. GI mentioned DeYoung has always been a low on-base percentage guy going back to his days with St. Louis. Definitely something to keep in mind if you are the Dodgers, because on-base percentage, another key indicator for consistency. Right field pavilion, I think Gavin Lux saved his job for another month with the 3 hits he had on Sunday. Perhaps, obviously, you love to see when Gavin Lux is able to hit for a little bit, get some hits, provide a little bit of length at the bottom of the order. I'm not sure exactly how long the leash is for Gavin Lux. Nobody really does, and that is something to keep in mind going forward if you are the Dodgers. That was right field pavilion. Cole mentions, I see Luis Robert similarly to Tim Anderson, another exactly of the same profile of player. One-Eyed Dragons not exactly sold on Robert as well. Right field pavilion, the perfect player for this team would have been Luis Reyes. Radley, the Padres traded for him first. I think he, as far as the hitter, would have been a really solid player for the Dodgers. Defensively, very hard to see him have a role because he really does struggle defensively. Doesn't hit for a lot of power. However, very much that contact-oriented type player. He is on the Padres. He's having some success for the Padres, and last time I looked, he had a 140-something WRC plus. Good for him. Hope the Dodgers beat the Padres when they play them, though, going forward. Is Tommy Pham a good option? Player-wise, perhaps. 1-year contract, Chicago White Sox. Those things seem to fit well together. Question is, does he fit well with the Dodgers and the clubhouse? Or do you like the edge that he could bring to the Dodgers, that ruthless energy in the postseason, that elimination type mindset? I think that is something to keep in mind. Tommy Pham, I had mentioned him back before the Dodgers signed a Teoscar Hernandez, before I knew the Dodgers were going to pay $23 million for an outfielder as a potential option. I think he could be, but the Dodgers really do value their culture. You could say that is a bad thing. You could say that it could be a downfall to why they haven't gone as far as they should have gone during the postseason. They do value that, so I'm not necessarily know if the Dodgers would make that move as well. BC mentions that the front office doesn't necessarily value average. That they prefer a lot of those more advanced statistics, WRC plus. Actually, Brad Tunney, the color commentator for the Great Lakes Loons, mentioned something like that when discussion for Chris Newell, mentioned just how valuable, and one of the things that the Dodgers likely, in his best estimation, Dodgers look at is WRC plus. That's why we mention it quite a bit on the show. Still, you look at the Arias, he still is able to put up decent WRC plus numbers, even if they aren't phenomenal, or even if his profile is limited because he doesn't play as good defensively and doesn't walk a whole lot. I think that limits some of the upside for him just a little bit, but he is on the Padres, not an option for the Dodgers, at least this season, at least it would seem going forward. So just looking to see if there's any other comments right here. Hello, Craig Osterberg. Happy birthday to Loons player Kelvin Ramirez. Absolutely. Kelvin Ramirez, relief pitcher within this organization, has pitched really, really well for Great Lakes. Statistically, one of the better relief pitchers for the Loons, and has been a high leverage relief pitcher. Very happy birthday to him. Also, a congratulations to Chris Newell as well. As I had mentioned, outfielder for the High A Great Lakes team, which, if you haven't seen before, got my Great Lakes Loons Margaritaville jersey on. So definitely really cool and happy for that. Chris Newell, Midwest League Hitter Player of the Week, was announced today. Congratulations to him. He just goes out there and hits absolute bombs. Chris Newell has taken his game to another level that I didn't see. I only saw glimpses of it when he first started, when he got called up and he was hitting really well. I believe it was in Lansing during the 2023 season back in July-ish, June, July, something like that. Then there was a little bit of inconsistencies. Chris Newell is unbelievable. Leads all of minor league baseball in home runs. He is your Midwest League Player of the Week. Well-deserved congratulations to him. As I am going to conclude this live stream, it's been a very fun live stream today. Dodgers Dawgs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Been a fun week. Got to go to different baseball events. Got to this Loons jersey. Got to go to the local or one of the teams in the areas. Not a minor league team, but the Kalamazoo Growlers, which, funny enough, my dad wanted me to mention this. Have an alternate identity called the Nut Smugglers. Kind of funny how they do that, similar to how the Loons have Los Pepinillos Picantes del Norte, or the Camels, or the Pontooners. But within the world of Dodgers baseball, it is a good time of year. We are in June. The Dodgers are 15 games above 500. They're in good position. Yet there's still areas of need that this team has to address and will address moving forward to make this team as airtight as possible. You're starting to enter into trade season. Still a little bit early. Still time to give guys chances, or time to bring guys up internally to get options. And still time to see potential injuries. We saw Max Muncy go down. I don't think any of us expected that. However, going forward, we're going to see and hear more and more rumors, whether that is the Luis Robert rumors, which could pop up and disappear, and another player could pop up, just like we've seen like a Bo Bichette pop up. Eventually, I think the Dodgers are going to do something to try to make this team better. They're a very good team. They might be at this point, and I think they are, an incomplete team, whether that be guys that they call up, whether that be they need to gain some of the production, whether that be guys coming back for injuries, or whether that be guys coming in from other organizations. This team is going to continue to do whatever it can to be as best as it possibly can be. Excited to watch this club, excited to continue to watch this organization. Minor league players just performing incredibly well. A lot of great performances for this Dodgers club. The state of the Dodgers right now is healthy. It can get better, and we need the Dodgers to go ahead and do everything they can to win a World Series. Right now, Dodgers are in a solid position. Look for things to continue to get better. My name's been Austin Brubaker. Continue to be Austin Brubaker. This has been Monday Night Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. We will have more stuff coming out. I know Casey and I are recording stuff, I believe, early tomorrow morning. That stuff should be coming out pretty soon. You'll be more live streams to come. There will be more videos to come. As you are leaving, go ahead and leave a like on the video. Leave a comment. That surely does help this channel quite a bit. Thank you to Right Field Pavilion for the super chat. Very much appreciate it, and very much appreciative of all of you guys for tuning in for Dodgers baseball. Until next time, thank you. Go Dodgers and go Loons. Dive in. It's Loons baseball time here. Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network.